What's going on, guys? I'm Off Track 7. As always, I have Off Track West with me.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about the Batman movie in another installment of our show here on the channel called Greater Bait. Now, what is Greater Bait, you might ask? Greater Bait is a show where we discuss a TV show, series, anime, whatever it might be, even a movie, as we're doing this week. If the show is great, it's pretty self-explanatory. Was it good? Was it decent? Was it something worth watching? Did you extrapolate anything decent from it? Or bait, if it was just a movie that was just all about the hype. Marketing really got you in that seat, and when you were at the theater sitting there munching on your popcorn, you fell the fuck asleep. That's what bait really is. Something that makes you disappointed to spend your money or even waste your time watching. Today, our topic being the Batman. We went to see that 2 days ago, and I've got to say, had a lot of fun with this movie. Was not expecting what we got, but I am very happy to see the first installment of the detective side of Batman in a feature film. I think that it was the most we've seen him be a detective in a movie, in a really
I would
long
say
time.
for sure.
I had a lot of fun with that. So I think that was probably one of the primary aspects of this Batman that I really enjoyed a lot. But before we get into it, I'll have Wes recap some of the movie for you. But as always, going forward, you gotta know that there are gonna be spoilers in this video. Yes, you have to see the movie before you watch it. Why would you click on a review of a movie without seeing the... Well, I guess people do that before you go to see the movie.
Yeah.
All right, quick review before, go watch the movie. It's a really good movie. You're going to have a lot of fun. Make sure you clear out...
We could already say it's
breaks.
great.
Yeah, it's great.
I will say, the movie has a very strong start by using the back signal and showing us the fear that it puts in people. And we immediately get a strong impression of what type of Batman he is specifically, because obviously we know who Batman is, but seeing how he differs in this depiction of himself is very interesting. He's very much a emo, early on, heartbroken, vulnerable Batman that is clearly not stable to any capacity. Robert Pattison does a very good job in filling that role of this
Twilight
type of Batman.
Man does a great job portraying
that's honestly, it's not too far off the mark. He went from playing a vampire to being a vampire.
All right, so this is a movie that I really liked a lot because it presented this idea that, vengeance and fear are maybe not the best way to bring a city that you claim to love out of its darkest moments. Because the thing that I think is most poignant about commentary that they're making on, the whole Batman's use of fear is that, you can't really control who's affected by that fear. You can
exactly
for sure target the criminal element of Gotham with your use of fear and you direct that rage and vengeance towards them. But the regular people of Gotham are going to be like, damn, this guy could be coming for me next. That's why the first guy that he saved in the movie is afraid of him. He's like, damn, I know you just saved my life, but bro, I just saw you give a guy a concussion. At least, this dude is going to have mental problems later on in life. You punch the fuck out of his head. You use his head as a, punching bag. I'm gonna be scared of that guy because he's literally on Halloween night wearing some tactical gear, running around like a crazy guy, beating on folks. Thank you for saving me, my guy. But
I will say, a big point of Batman in this movie is that he's not necessarily saving people. I think he's unable to actually save as much people as he could because he's so focused on, the fear and intimidation. Like you were saying before, his vengeance is his priority, but saving people isn't his priority. Because
I love that he's come to be known as Vengeance. Because he introduces himself as Vengeance. His first introduction of himself that he gives to the criminal element of Gotham in this movie is that I'm Vengeance.
I'm Vengeance.
And to have it thrown back in his face later is just a great scene for me. But I think that he inspires that fear not only in the criminal element of Gotham, but also in the regular people, because you don't know who he is. You don't know what his agenda is, where he gets all his gear, or what he's even doing in the city, because all we know is that he's going out, he's beating on folks, and he's going back home. Sometimes these happen to be criminals, other times we don't know, because you can't keep every story straight about a guy that's so enigmatic. So,
and in a weird way, he's very much like, and Catwoman points this out. He's kind of a cop with some leeway because he's very much kind of not necessarily on the side of them, but because he's so focused on petty criminals and not actually the systems that are making those criminals come about. He's dealing with the symptoms, but not the. He's dealing with the symptoms, but not the root of the disease of the city of Gotham.
Yeah, that's actually perfectly put. Like, he's dealing with the symptoms, but not the source of the disease itself, which is, I feel like the best point that this movie illustrates is that Gotham is just diseased. Maybe it's not worth saving.
I will say, and maybe this is me being emo, this is probably the closest movie that has, like, an actual commentary in real life in terms of like the corruption, like, or at least this is the Batman movie that I feel like is closest to something that we could like have a conversation about in real life. Like, what do we deal with? How do we deal with the corruption in our reality, and where we can't, and how can we fight against it? And it is it's a very hard thing to see. And while like obviously the optics of Batman will always sort of be weird, seeing how it's explored and how it's challenged in the Batman world with just the crime families and how it's embedded in from the smallest of people to the biggest of people, with the major theme of orphans being something that both Batman, the Riddler, and Catwoman are. And though they all are orphans as a result of the corruptions of the city, but like someone like Batman has his money as like a leeway, as a cushion that they mentioned.
And I think it's really important to mention what the Riddler's plan was. He's the guy who worked for the Renewal Project, which was established by Martha in the Wayne Foundation, I think, which was, in a sense, trying to help the city by being a charitable organization. But with the death of Martha in,
Thomas.
With the death of Martha and Tomas, Wayne, their fund kind of went up to shit because nobody was really managing it, so people kind of used it to cook the books a little bit and got whatever they wanted passed. Like, they would like use it to bribe people, to just make things happen, and essentially the criminal element of the city used that money to essentially establish itself as the only legitimate source of power in the city. Like, Falcone used that system to like establish his own men in the police system, establish his own men in the DA's office, establish his own people in his pocket, essentially running the city from behind the scenes, knowing essentially that if he doesn't intentionally put a target on his own back, he could literally run the city from the ground and nobody will have any idea that he's doing it. And for the longest of time, the people who weren't in his pocket just turned a blind eye, and the whole city of Gotham was like operating under this lie where like the people in power were actually serving the criminals, which, I mean, is not that far removed from our reality, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're not a political commentary channel.
We are. Nixon, I will say, anyone who says this movie's bad because it's woke has no media literacy at all.
Yeah, they don't know what woke is. But I mean, I think it's just a term that people are just throwing about. Like, Catwoman had that one line, so people are like, what a woke movie. Failing to see that this whole movie is like
that line was like service leveled to what was going on in this movie.
All the other shit that was going on. That's like a small... Anyways, I think that the whole point with Nigma, with the Riddler, was that he found out about the corruption in the city. And like Bruce, he decided that, I have to do something. But unlike Bruce, he decided the thing that he has to do is not save Gotham. No. As an orphan that was pummeled by the system, that was shown that the city doesn't give a fuck. The city, after Martha and Thomas died, what we learned is that the orphanage that they gave to the city was their old mansion, which kind of fell to disrepair because nobody gave a fuck about it. The only person that the media or anybody else seemed to care about was Bruce. And Bruce was the one with the money. We learned through Nigma, or whatever they called him in this movie, that he and the other orphans in that orphanage that stayed behind barely had any heating, where like there were rats running rampant.
The living conditions were just awful.
Were terrible. And
yeah,
a lot of them became drug addicts, dropheads they call them in this movie. And we see that in a scene where Batman Where Batman he has to break into the orphanage and he sees the reality system. I like how him and Gordon just walk past it, like they didn't just see.
There's a lot of turning of the blind eyes.
Bro, use your money to help these people. Aren't you supposed to be aren't you trying to help Gotham?
I think there's also a sense of out of sight and out of mind. Like it's easy to overlook the orphans that don't have a camera on them. But
it's easy to overlook druggies that are out of the way and people aren't looking at. I mean, we have a literal epidemic right now going on in this country. Bro, let's not talk about it.
Because it's not in our eyes, it's easy to overlook. Except when it's convenient to certain people.
Yeah.
It's very rough.
And no, you mean in when it sells a story.
Yeah, when it sells a story.
The billionaire's kids dying, bro. Like, of course people are gonna be like, oh shit.
Yeah, and I know that like we talked about this off ice very much for him not being the billionaire playboy. Maybe they could do that for the future, but for here, I think it said a lot about him that he wasn't that person, that like he couldn't bring himself to do that in this specific movie. I understand it's important, but for what they were trying to tell with this movie, I think him just being this like mad recluse kind of honed into the fact that he's that unhinged, that he's not like I don't want to talk to people. Like he's clearly uncomfortable with situations. It doesn't even look like the way that he looked when he's talking to Carmen Falcone every time he was Bruce Wayne. He just looked uncomfortable, like he just did not want to be there. So it's,
I mean, I think that's the whole Batman thing where like he doesn't really feel like it's himself when he's Bruce. Like his true self is behind that suit. I feel like it's like it brings him comfort, like to just wear all that like protective layer. Like literally the suit is who he truly is. When he's Bruce Wayne, he feels like he's without his protection, without his like skin in a way. Yeah. So I feel like you're right in that assessment of the character. And that's another point that the Riddler brought up. Like he's like, I see people trying to say who the fuck is Batman. I know this is who you truly are. Like it doesn't matter who's behind that suit, because that's not you. This is you.
That was another great scene where he really just. This is probably one of the best Batman.
Yeah. They were literally looking into each other's eyes. Like he was like, "Oh, you're not me. You're crazy. You're a crazy person." I'm like, bro, do you not dress up as a bat and beat people up at night because like a criminal killed your parents as a child? Like, isn't that like your reality? You're calling him crazy? Isn't this the pot calling the kettle black? He literally based his whole entire thing off of you. If you're calling him crazy, what does that say about you?
You have to unpack shit about yourself.
Facts.
Yeah. And I think the gut twister is what you said when someone else said, I am vengeance. Like,
yes.
It's
like literally his line.
It's very easy to convince himself that he's his justice, but he needs to learn to examine it. And I think actually helping people and not be focused on his vengeance is what's going to lead to like him being better. I definitely think there could be a situation where he walks away from Gotham to do some healing before coming back. But I think because he's so tied to Gotham, it's not something that we could ever see. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the movie, right, we get that somber scene where like he goes in to kiss Selina, but Selina is like, I know you're spoken for. Like, the city, that's your partner. That's your true partner. You can like take on as many Robins as you want, as many partners, whatever. It's always going to be a temporary relationship. We see that in Batman Beyond. All the people who came into his life left him eventually because they realized that Batman's only true commitment is to Gotham.
It's bad. That's what I said. His priority is his vengeance, not actually helping Gotham in this point.
I mean, I think he learns that lesson.
Yeah, definitely. He's not creating more orphans like Riddler is.
Riddler saw the corruption and the apathy of the city and just decided that the best way to fix it is to take care of it, you know? The nuclear option.
Yeah.
Destroy that bitch.
Oof. It's awful. And in terms of, I'm not an expert, but I guess cinematography, there's a lot of just scenes and framings that stuck with me.
Shots. Like, oh my God. Anytime he was up on that roof talking to someone, anytime he was at that abandoned construction site, I don't know what it was, but like they had that shot overlooking the city. And it was just so beautiful to watch them. I don't know anything about cinematography outside
cinnamon photography.
Outside of one class I took in college. But, bro, this movie is stunning. You have to see this movie in IMAX. You must.
I will say something you pointed out to me in probably one of the best face-off scenes between Batman and the villain, for my money.
Ah, I know what you mean, yeah. That mirrored scene, bro, I love that scene. Batman was literally looking into himself, what he could become or could be if he crossed that line, that moral line of not killing people, because literally they have almost an identical origin. It's so poetic in a way that, like, he was an orphan that wasn't, like, that didn't have an Alfred. He didn't have anybody to take care of him. He didn't have the money, the cushion, or any of that. He had to scratch his way out of that. And to find out that the renewal thing that everybody in the orphanage was sold on as their savior, as a thing that would come to help them, was actually being abused by the city and nobody was doing shit. And even worse, people were complicitly participating in it for monetary gain. It drove him crazy.
It's rough.
It drove him insane. It drove him to the same point that Batman, because Batman is a crazy person, let's be honest. That's why when Riddler was like throwing it in his face, saying like, bro, I thought you would be on the same side. Even Catwoman even said, I thought you'd support what they're doing because they're targeting an element of crime. Like, he's targeting an element of crime in the city, corruption in the city that's so deeply ingrained into it that it helps it function. It's a part of the way it takes, the way it works. Batman is focusing on channeling his vengeance on the street crime, but Riddler is focused on channeling his own vengeance at the corrupt political and, like, I guess, the blue-collar crime that's going on in the city. Both of them targeting crime in a way, but when you think about like blue-collar crime, it reaches more people. It has much more of a reach. Like, it affects who gets evicted, it affects who's in power, and what kind of programs get passed, and what kind of bills get instated, what kind of criminals goes to jail. Is the people Batman is apprehending in the street just revolving? Like, it has a revolving door at the jail where, like, the DA's office, even though Batman apprehended, the DA's office is like, well, I work for fucking Falcone, so this guy works for Falcone. Even though Batman took him in, he goes back to the streets because he works for my fucking boss who's paying me. So essentially, Batman is literally doing nothing because his whole plan or his whole, like, vengeance is being undercut by the fact that the city is corrupted to its core. The best he can do is beat people up. All he's doing is giving people concussions for free.
And I think, even though it is very awfully depressing, like, I think the only way Carmine Falcone
this movie is
could have gotten out, I think the only way Carmine Falcone could have, like, gotten out is with Riddler's plan, because if he weren't in prison, he could have just gotten out. And they did expose his reputation, so it's tarnished. But I think the stark difference...
he knew that. That's why he was so smug.
Yeah. But I think the stark difference is that the movie does try to leave you with a bit of hope. Especially with, like, to go back to the cinematography point. This scene of Batman with the light and leading the people out and carrying them. And with the little orphan boy. I think after the flooding came down and several people were buried under the debris of...
the building falling,
Yeah, I think the scene that does leave you with a bit of hope is when Batman is trying to save as many people as possible, even despite the situation. And especially with the light leading them out of the darkness, that's very sweet. I like that. That was a Dark Souls reference.
I am your shepherd.
Yeah, and it was nice to see the orphan boy being the one that was the first to reach out to him, as you sort of pointed out to me while we were watching it. It was it was nice.
It was nice, yeah.
It's rough, and I think it does feel hopeless. Even the real world, shit like this feels hopeless. Like, with systems turning against us, and how do we deal with that? And
I think the movie doesn't really answer that, and I don't think it's its job to answer that.
It
just tells you to use those scars, that pain that you feel, not for vengeance, but use it to, like, overcome things in the future, because you'll have the strength to endure. And I think that's a good message overall to have, like, to be hopeful as opposed to bitter.
Or at least to try, and I hope that, depending on where they go into the future, maybe we'll see him. He didn't start off as a Bruce Wayne that's actually trying to do something, but maybe they can explore what will Bruce
he's not
Wayne
a Bruce Wayne that's using his money for anything good. And I think we see where that leads him in, like, a series like Batman Beyond, where, like, his company's, like, literally taken over by, like, powers and somebody who's using it for corrupt means. Like, I don't want that to happen to this Batman, honestly.
Yes.
And I feel like it's a very strong possibility that he gets, like, pushed out of his company like Norman was in Spider-Man. Just like, dude, you don't even care. Like, you don't. You're using all our money. You're using all our money, and you don't even fucking care to help us. Like, what are we paying you for?
It is pretty rough. There was just a lot of scenes where I'm like, I feel for you, Batman,
He's
but there's
very
also
entitled.
you're kind of fucking crazy. Yeah, like you're not my dad, Alfred. We went in the same place. He's never got to go past his trauma. He's a whole mess of a person, and it's just the fact that Ridley played him. And I think in the future, like, I hope they take the chance to explore the mayor's orphan son, and maybe other orphan kids that came about
that were affected,
because of this flooding and debris, like because of the flooding and explosions.
I feel like
what's
the
gonna
ironic
happen between
thing
them
about his plan to destroy Gotham is that he's creating more of a tragedy for people who are just as innocent as those orphans were. You know, just like
to be susceptible to a corrupt world. That's
he
true.
chooses nihilism. We can't choose that, bro. We can never choose that. And we can use those experiences, those past experiences, to help us fight the oncoming battles, you know? And I think that's a good point to try to make, because especially as the world is moving in this direction, that's just like, damn, what do I even do to try to help? You know, like it just feels like you're getting beaten down at every corner. I think the message to have hope and to try is very good.
Yeah. Except hope in politicians. I don't. with the girl that was like real chains, I'm like, yeah. I just don't.
But every actor, I think, did a great job. I love Falcone.
Absolutely.
I love the Penguin. My God, the Penguin was great. Fucking Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, dude, was amazing. I love the scene where like they walked into the asylum and he took out his gun, and Batman was like, no guns. He's like, nah, bro, that's your thing. I'm gonna do me. But yeah, I love this movie a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely recommend you go see it. It's definitely great.
I thought it was bait, honestly. I thought it was bait. I doubt they're just gonna do another Batman story. It's not gonna be anything new or interesting. Yeah. And then when I saw it, I was like, this is actually great. This is probably the best Batman movie. It's,
in my eyes, it's the best. Honestly, it's one of, at least if not the best, one of the best. Because I haven't seen the other ones in years, so I need to
I need to revisit them
and before I make that definitive statement. But right now, it's my favorite Batman thing that I've seen in years. Honestly.
Yeah, and especially with how it tackled what it tackled. Come on, you stupid brick! Fucking work! What is this? I bought this. This is so brand new. Why won't you turn on? Seabass! What are you doing, Seabass? Come on! Work!
My favorite scene is a scene when you were describing. It's a scene you were describing earlier when he jumped down to save the people from, getting electrocuted to death. And he reaches over with his light in one hand. And the first person to grab his hand was that little boy, the son of the mayor, who walked in and found his dead father. I just thought it was a great scene that was the first person to trust him.
Yeah, that he actually got to save an orphan at this point, not like vengeance.
The story started with an orphan, it ended with an orphan.
Yeah, it was a good scene. Do you have any closing thoughts? I also thought it was great. It was a really interesting exploration of Batman. I definitely think doing a young, much more like zoned in tunnel vision Batman was interesting, and seeing the consequences of that.
A flawed Batman.
Yeah, a very, very flawed Batman.
He's that super calculating, super ninja, I'm better than everybody. I can do everything better than you and your mom.
Yeah, he's like Batman without the Batman without the Paragon.
He's literally the Batman. You could see the man behind. That's great. That was my favorite part of the movie. That and the detective aspects of it too. Those are my two favorite parts. I cannot wait to see more in this universe. And also, while watching it the first time, I was like, I want Matt Reeves to be the guy to do Court of Owls, bro. He has to do the Court of Owls. One of the best Batman storylines. I feel like I trust him to handle that. And Hush. But I guess this movie was based on The Long Halloween. So if you're looking for Batman media to, kind of fill that void that's been left in your heart, you can just read that. That's a great story too, so you can just get into that. Or you can watch our Batman Beyond video, which is available now, where we talk about the implications of legacy characters and what they mean to us. But as always, guys, we're just happy to provide some content for y'all and, just have fun reviewing these movies. Nothing really too serious.
I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And I hope you guys enjoyed the Batman.
Thank you.
I've been off track 7, and, check out our Fire Emblem stuff. Peace.
Batman isn't a vampire. You see, that's a common misconception.
Shut up. That was a great joke. Shut up. That was a great joke. I could have pushed it further. He went from being a vampire stalking women to being a vampire stalking women, which is what he does to Catwoman in this movie. Boom,
Yeah,
another great
do
joke.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm on a roll.